Hi guys, this is not a clickbait. When I moved there to Japan, I had no idea things would turn out this way. Mentally and emotionally, I had already committed to this immigration. And before we start, disclaimer, I'm not going to name the school and I'm not saying the school is bad. It just wasn't the right fit for me personally and I'm sharing my experience. I think, in contrast with colorful experience, I should share mine so you can see other perspective. For you, it might be completely different. Maybe this kind of study and school would be perfect fit for you. Agenda for this video: how I applied to the school, how I moved to Japan, my first week there and adapting, my first day in a class, and how I made the decision to leave. The vibe of this video is like talking to an old friend, so grab a drink, put this on the background, and let's chat. Hi guys, my name is Aida. Welcome to my channel. A bit of background so that you understand where I'm coming from. I have a university degree, work experience, and a family. I've been to Japan 3 times and I really liked it. That's why I seriously considered immigrating. I didn't move to Japan just to hang out and learn the language for fun. I had a professional goal and wanted to settle there long term. That's why I wasn't looking for part-time jobs in convenience stores or tourist agencies. I was aiming for something in my professional field. How I applied to the language school. I already had some Japanese experience. I studied for about 6 months online with a tutor. The school I chose was in Tokyo. Finding a school was easy, just search it online, contact an agent, and they guide you through the process. I applied and paid in November, got my student visa approved in February, and my classes were set to start in April, right in time for cherry blossom season. The move. I quit my job, said goodbye to everyone, sold my beautiful pink car, had a farewell party, packed 2 suitcases, left my cat with a friend, temporarily, I plan to bring him later, and opened a new chapter of my life. If you want to see and feel the vibe of my life, I'm currently staying in Dubai. You can subscribe and stay tuned for the new videos. First week in Japan. I arrived with friends. They came on a tourist visa for a month to travel around Japan, while I came on a student visa to study. Classes starting April 7th. I landed in Japan late at night on April 2nd, and from the 3rd to the 6th, I was setting up my new life, apartment hunting, exploring neighborhoods, imagining my best Japanese life. I decided to live in a share house. It's cheaper and easier to make friends. I even found some cute cafes and clubs I wanted to join later on. About the school. On April 5th, the school sent me a brochure with their rules. A few things caught my attention. My assigned teacher would be absent for the first week, so I would have a substitution. The school calendar showed a week-long break almost every month. Classes were 4 hours a day, Monday to Friday, and attendance was strict. Arrive 10 minutes early or it counts as an absence. More than 30% of absence and they report you to the immigration, which could cancel your visa. I understood the rules. If you're here to study, you should study. First day in class. That morning, I saw my friends off to Fujikawa Wichiko, then headed to school early. When I arrived, I was surprised. The building was huge. I thought maybe just a few floors were for the school, but no, all 20 floors were for the language school. The first floor was a chaos. First day energy, I guess. There was even a line for the elevator. It clicked something in my head, but then I reassured myself. I came here to study, not for the building, and I shouldn't judge by an appearance before the actual class happened. I got to my class first, sat in front like a true A+ student, and waited. The class filled up, about 15 people, mostly from China, Europe, and the US. Average age, maybe 27. The teacher came in, an older woman, and handed out textbooks and hiragana katakana writing practice sheets. Here's the thing, I had taken a placement test, so they knew I wasn't a complete beginner. But I thought, okay, maybe we'll review quickly and then move on. The class was full immersion. The teacher didn't speak English, only Japanese. If you didn't understand, she would repeat the same thing 10, 20 times or act it out with gestures. Yes, full immersion, but I didn't feel like it was effective. I forgot to mention that there was an interactive board, and for half an hour of those 4 hours, she was trying to figure out how to use the interactive board. She could spend forever writing something, pressing buttons, fumbling with the screen, and it felt completely ineffective. That's when doubt started creeping in. The exact moment I realized something was wrong was when the whole class began to feel like a kindergarten. We were literally writing out the alphabet, and for some reason, every student had to go up to the board one by one to write a single letter. On top of that, each student had to repeat the greetings we had just learned. Ohayo gozaimasu, konnichiwa, konbanwa. Like each student. 15 students. It didn't feel effective at all. After 4 hours, we had managed to cover 5 letters of the alphabet, the most basic greetings, good morning, how are you, sorry, and stuff like that. That's when it hit me. This lesson was artificially stretched to 4 hours. It could have easily been 40 minutes of structured information, 20 minutes of quick practice. That's it. In my 1 hour online lessons, I used to get through as much more. Most of the practice happened later, independently, as a homework. During class, I would ask questions only when I really needed to ask questions. But here, my excitement was fading fast. Shadows of doubt appeared, and I started questioning all my life decisions. I had enough time to do so because the lesson dragged on, phones weren't allowed, and I had finished all the exercises, and there was nothing left to do but think. And I thought, apartment. Okay, I hadn't signed the rental contract yet. I was planning to sign it after the class, but once I do, I'm locked in for 6 months. Time. To make it on time to the class, I would need to leave 1.5 hours early. Then 4 hours of class, then another 1.5 hours of commuting home, plus homework. That's around 7-8 hours a day just for language school. Work. If I wanted to work at the same time, it would be nearly impossible. And speaking of work, I didn't even have a job lined up. With my background, I didn't want to work at Combini, a network company, or a cafe. That wasn't my field or expertise. I couldn't skip classes just to work, otherwise my visa would be cancelled. Basically, I had no job, no safety net, no social circle here. This whole thing suddenly seemed so shaky, and it seemed like so many compromises just for the sake of living in Japan and trying this aesthetic life. Because I had already experienced immigrating once to Dubai, and back then I was relocated for work. I felt financially secure, I had a clear role and purpose. Here, I realized I was just a student and it didn't suit me. I would prefer to relocate as a specialist where you're needed. Trying to study, find the work, and build a life all at once, alone, for me, it was simply too much. On top of that, the point says loneliness, being away from family and friends. I thought I had accepted this weight of immigration, but maybe I hadn't fully understood it. And if I compared the costs of everything, for the same money, I could have just come to Japan for 3 months as a tourist, no obligation to sit in the class daily, no homework. Instead, I could hire a tutor online, cheaper than the school of course, and no commute every day, and practice Japanese while walking outside with Oba-san and Oji-san, who are probably lonely and would love to chat, I guess. Honestly, it seemed like much more rational option. All of this was just a constant stream of thoughts spinning in my head until the end of the class, but I didn't make any rash decisions. I told myself I would think it over after the class. When class ended, I went up to some classmates, introduced myself, and suggested to grab a dinner to talk about what just happened in the class, because clearly I wasn't the only one feeling bored and disappointed. Over the dinner, I realized these guys were Japan crazy. I don't know how to explain that, but from what I gathered, they were in Japan simply because they love Japan. They were obsessed with Japan. Tattoos of torii gates, kanji, anime, and stuff like that. They were here just for the sake of being here. No career plans, no big life plans, no long-term strategies. I don't judge that, but it didn't align with my goals. After Dubai, I had this constant FOMO, this drive to achieve, and the circle of people doing interesting things. That was my experience and my reference point. And here, when I was sitting with these people, kind of obsessed with Japan, there wasn't much. And I'm just not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's not much. After dinner, I went back to my friend's place where I was staying that time, replaying it all in my head, trying to explain it to my friends through messages online. Most of them didn't get it. Fair enough. They said maybe I was just too tired, maybe I was homesick. It was only the first day, after all, and the school school wasn't ready yet. But still, it was the first day. The first day matters. First impression matters. There should have been clear processes, proper lesson plan, and so on. I postponed signing the apartment contract, decided to go to school early the next morning and just ask about refund policies to see if that was even possible. I was thinking to attend classes until Friday, then decide based on more than just day one. So the actual withdrawal decision. On Tuesday morning, I went early, asked the manager about refunds. She was shocked. Apparently, I was the first student in the school's history to ask about refund on the very first day. At first, she flat out. She said refunds aren't possible. I politely but firmly asked her to show me where it was written. She took my student ID, did something, sighed, and asked why I wanted to quit. I explained, it's not that they're teaching badly, it's just what the format doesn't suit me. I only realized this by actually attending and trying it. Basically, I said, it's not you, it is me. Then she brought in the director, another older Japanese woman. The director couldn't understand how I didn't like the class. I think she took it personally. So I added, it's also just hard for me being far from my family. Maybe we can classify it under family matter or something. Maybe I'm just homesick. And also I asked, maybe I'm rushing. Class starts in 10 minutes. Can I attend today's lesson and then decide afterwards? Maybe today will be different. The director told me, if I go into class now, I'll lose the right to refund. No refund at all. For me, that was a red flag. If they were confident in the quality of their lesson, wouldn't they want me to stay? Where's the client-oriented stuff? Instead, they started pressuring me. I had to make the decision right then and there. So I asked for 10 minutes, sat in the lobby, thought it through, called friends and family. They didn't really understand my feelings, but they said they would support me no matter what, if I have this feeling in my gut. At that moment, I felt truly adult, making a decision independently, fully responsible for its consequences. Only me and my decision. They agreed to refund me 90% of the tuition, which I thought was fair, better than nothing, but I had to leave the country the next day or the day after. The thing is, my friends were going to be in Japan for a whole month, and I hadn't planned at all to fly out 5 days after arriving. So here I had to switch on my diplomacy fully and negotiate to keep my visa for months, because my student visa was tied to the school and technically they were responsible for me. After some back and forth, we settled. I buy tickets right now, but I must return to my country by the end of the month. As soon as I cross the border, cancel my residence card and send them proof. After that, they will start the refund process. During that month in Japan, I had to always stay in touch, and I was strictly forbidden to work or commit any kind of offense, which honestly seemed like a fair conditions. So we agreed, and I sat down with the manager to sign their withdrawal papers. I felt like everything had to turn upside down so suddenly, and that I was giving up on my dream. It was sad, and even though I understood this dream of living in Japan wasn't really the way I wanted to live in Japan, it still hurt. The manager saw I was sad, and she tried to cheer me up while I kept apologizing to her for the inconvenience I caused. It felt like I was apologizing to everyone, really, for refusing something so many people dream about. I signed the study cancellation document, no big drama, everything was clear. I went for lunch, trying to lift my mood, but the feeling was strange. On the one hand, I knew I was doing the right thing. On the other hand, I wasn't sure. And on the third, my dream had just shattered, and I was the one who shattered it. That cycle. Over lunch, it hit me. We had only talked verbally. If I left the country, they could just ignore me and never refund anything. They would leave me with no school, no money, no visa, nothing. It was embarrassing to go back, but I pulled myself together, reminded myself of my rights, and went back to the school. The manager saw me and probably thought, oh, her again. I asked her to write an email in front of me with all the points we had agreed on, so I'd have proof. She did it, and I left the school. For good. Evening came. Instead of going home, I went to 7-Eleven, bought onigiri, tea, some sweets to cheer myself up, sat under the sakura thinking about life, how in just a couple of days everything had flipped 180 degrees. I cried, not only because friends didn't understand me, but because I didn't even understand myself, but I had a gut feeling. Honestly, top 10 most unexpected anime endings, I swear. That evening, I was supposed to sign the apartment contract. I wrote to the agent that I couldn't because of the visa issues. I apologized. I stayed the night at my friend's place. We just watched anime, ate chips, junk food, no energy, nothing. She was surprised, by the way. Said she never seen anything like it. Someone giving up studies and going home after the very first day. Next morning, I just packed a backpack and tote bag, even though I had to come with 2.5 suitcases of stuff. I took the Shinkansen to Kyoto to see my friends. I didn't think about anything anymore, just added it to my collection of funny life stories. Spent a fun, eventful, really nice month with my friends. Months has passed. I flew back, cancelled my visa, sent proof, returned to Dubai. And that's when it started. In Japan, I could distract myself. I felt good walking around, but in Dubai, I came back with a heavy feeling, like I had lost, like I had failed myself. I started digging into myself, like I don't finish things, I give up too easily, how could I do this? My mind just ate me alive. For a month, I didn't tell anyone I was back. I locked myself in my room, cut off from everyone. I thought a lot, and I realized, in Japan, for the first time, I had been left alone with myself, and I understood, if you're unhappy with yourself, you'll be unhappy in Japan too. This whole move, it wasn't about running away, it was about kinda hearing myself. So now I'm slowly recovering. I signed up with Japanese tutors, still studying by myself. I'm unemployed in Dubai since then. I'm trying to figure out what I really want, trying different things, including this blog. The blog and the story are my way to document the path, to practice accepting myself, and to stop chasing some ideal person. And finally, to allow myself not to constantly achieve, but to stop sometime, be happy here and now. That's it. And yeah, by the way, speaking of all of that, by the August of 2025, I'm feeling much better. I accepted where I am right now, but at the same time, I want to push harder to actually change my life with the time I have now. I'm studying Japanese every day, and I'm planning to stream my study sessions live here on this channel. I'm also working on my own indie game and documenting the whole process, hitting the gym, sharing bits of life in Dubai. So if that sounds interesting to you, feel free to subscribe, and see you in the next videos.